They're doing it again, Neil. They're doing it again.
We've had a lot of lively episodes recently.
And that's great. And I'm
Also,
okay with that.
I know this is a hockey podcast, but happy
Happy,
opening day in baseball.
happy opening day. Yes.
Literally today.
For Canadians who are Flames fans, the Blue Jays are just kicking off against the Orioles. But
Is that like fair to say that like even if you live in the most western part of Canada, like it makes sense to be like a Blue Jays fan because they're in.
Go look at a Mariners game when the Blue Jays come to town. It's all Blue Jays fans.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's all Blue Jays. But hope everybody's having hope you're all. Are you having a good week so far? You know, all good.
Having a good week. I'm actually going to a little jazz concert later tonight, so that's gonna be fun. He's actually a former MLB player. Bernie Williams played a bunch of years with the New York Yankees. He was center fielder for many years, and then he became like a pretty not like famous, but like pretty pretty awesome musician. And he's gonna be in New Jersey. Only
That's
like
sick.
15, 20 minutes from my house. So I'm really excited to do that. And I spent last night stressing like hell about the Devils nearly collapsing in the third period against Chicago of all teams. So.
But they didn't, unlike last week.
But they didn't. But not like right. Unlike last week. But yeah, no, they got a much needed win. They have extended their playoff. I think they're at 97% now, likely to make the playoffs. So they're. I don't want to say they're a lock, but it's like you can't help it.
There's that chance.
There's this very small chance of how things go. But overall, been a good week. How about yourself?
Yeah, it's been kind of hectic. I got bad news yesterday. I told you I was supposed to get clubs this weekend down south, but apparently it's an ice storm coming to town for all of Ontario.
Ooh, lovely.
It's supposed to happen Friday to Monday, and it's supposed to be this gigantic ice storm that's coming in. And I go, well, there goes that plan.
I feel like because you and I live in two different countries, number one, and just two different areas altogether, the weather is never the same. Like for me, it's like not a cloud in the sky. It's cold and windy, but like not a cloud in the sky. It's lovely. And I'm being told by people who live in upstate New York, it snowed apparently. I'm being told now this ice storm, it's late March, by the way, and this is
it's still happening. I know, and like. I have like a tire appointment coming up in a couple weeks, and I'm like, schedule? Like, what's going on here, people? Like,
all right.
Yeah.
Hopefully you don't have to.
Well, and we're lucky enough to have this goddamn team apparently pull us back in like they did on Tuesday night. So let's.
I think you got to speak for yourself. They didn't really pull me back in. I was still feeling somewhat confident and somewhat optimistic.
I'm still on the fence, so I'm a little
still on the fence. They could win 3 more games in a row, and he might still be on the fence.
I might be. I don't know, but we can enjoy it as the Calgary Flames picked up a big win on Tuesday night. Kadri with the winner in overtime as the Flames win at 4-3 against the Seattle Kraken. Majority of the game sucked. First 2 periods of the game, they were kind of trash, and it helped with an early goal from Mr. Adam Klapka, but. Ever since that, they were really just slow and making silly mistakes and causing bad turnovers and kind of leaving Wolf out to dry a little bit. And then, of course, they decided to wake up in the third period like they've done the last, I don't know how many games they've done it now, ever since maybe the New Jersey game. But, they've all of a sudden just woke up and Kadri decided, it was helpful because of the double minor that was received that was on Coronado. That sent Seattle to the box for 4 minutes, and right at the end of the power play, it was Kadri. And then literally after that, it was Rasmus Andersson who probably made a kid cry. I'm not going to lie. I don't know if you saw the photos afterwards, but
I didn't.
That kid, I felt so bad for him that I actually wanted to reach out to him from our Flamescast Twitter and be like, do you want to come on and talk about what happened? I want you to go look.
All right.
Whenever you get a chance. To go look at when he scored, the kid just looked demoralized afterwards. And then Harvey the Hound comes down and he gives him a shirt that literally says, fan? No, he was a Kraken fan. That's why it was picture perfect. And Harvey the Hound came down, gave the kid a shirt that said, "I got stared down by Rasmus Anderson."
Yeah, it says Razzie found the one Kraken fan in the front row to stare at. It was Sportsnet, so I'm looking at it.
And it was
he just looks at him and just points at him.
just locked on him, and I thought it was so funny.
I'm surprised you found did you find this guy's Twitter account?
No, he actually, for whatever reason, I was on the Flames Cast Twitter account that night because whatever they came back and all that stuff, and he just popped up on the feed oh my god, all capital letters, look what happened. I have no idea what his name, no clue who he is anymore because it's kind of faded. But no, he was all over Flames Twitter, and everyone was kind of praising him a little bit. I kind of felt bad because it looked like he was there with nobody. But I think there was another guy who was a Flames fan, came down. I guess he was in the bathroom or something, and then sat with him. But yeah, it was so funny.
I found something funny on Twitter from this Twitter handle. Twitter name is Zeke or @AverageFan_Z.
Okay.
He put out a tweet that said Nazem Kadri since Ramadan started. So this is
man.
6 goals, 3 assists, 9 points, 1 game-winning goal. This is the picture he chose.
Jesus.
So Ramadan Kadri might be the best player in the NHL.
He's gotten heat, but he's coming up clutch again, and I think he's been under the radar. And when you need him the most, he's there. And I think that's going to go a long way, especially in the years to come, right? That's why we keep him, right? Mm-hmm. And he's elevated his game, and he's been really, really great as of recently. Yeah. And sometimes it just doesn't come in goals, right? It comes in other portions of the game. But anyway, it was 3-2 after the stare down, and the Kraken it was silly the way Eberle tied it there with 1:30 left, and he just tapped it, and it just went under Dustin Wolf's pads, and it was what a backbreaker. And now you start thinking about oh god, it doesn't even matter if they get a point, they need the full 2, and you go into overtime, and Wolf again stands on his head, a huge pad save, bounced right out to Coronado, feeds Kadri, and it was beautiful patience from him. And you can just tell afterwards, the reaction, it was just electric. And that's something that when the season comes to an end, whenever it does, I'm going to look back on these games and just be yeah, I want to hold on to that going into next year, right? I don't know if you saw the highlights or whatever from this game, but any thoughts from kind of what you saw and heard on Tuesday?
I think the Flames have just been following a consistent path of showing a lot of resilience, especially since the New Jersey game last Thursday, where
even the Rangers game where it started.
Even starting with the Rangers game, they just feel comfortable being in these very close, sometimes low-scoring games. And I think it's great that, would I like to see them play a full, good 60 minutes? For sure, right? But, other case scenario, if they can, you keep it close going into the third period, you have to feel confident if you're a Calgary fan right now, because you got to be looking at it and saying, you get to the third period, Flames been really, really, dominant in that third period. So I don't want to say that needs to be the way that we're going to play the rest of the year.
Yeah.
But I think it's important for them, especially in this push for the playoffs, to find ways to win games like that. And especially if they make the playoffs and they get into a situation like that, where they are, in a game where they need a goal or two to come back in the third period and they can find a way to get it done, that these guys are not in any situation to panic or worry or put their head down. I think that I think there's something to be said for how this team reacts to Ryan Huska's coaching, because Huska's not a big yeller, as we've seen. He's not a big, I don't want to say he's not emotional, but he seems to be very even keel a lot of the time, in a lot of situations. And I think the Flames, I think some of these Flames players have really resonated with that and feel, decent, feel pretty decent going in, into certain situations. So I think overall, would I have liked to see them win that in regulation? Sure. But again, you're facing a Kraken team that's not in a playoff spot. The more important thing is you get the 2 points. You don't care how you get it done. And so now you've won 4 in a row. So now you've been one of the hotter teams of the last week, if we're going back to literally a week ago, they've certainly been on that pace, this is the right time to get hot. This is the exact right time to get hot. And it's good that the Flames are winning these games. And now they go into a really tough stretch coming up, but they've gotten a little bit of help, which is important.
Yeah, we'll get into it. And the only issue is, and it's out of the Flames' control, is that the Blues are hot and the Canucks are hot. And that's the biggest problem, right?
Yeah.
Is that, and there's nothing that they can really control, right? It's that they can only do what they're able to do, and they're not going to be facing any of these teams kind of going forward. And there's just nothing that you can really control about it. So we'll kind of get more into the playoff race afterwards. But yeah, and then you mentioned Huska, and I'm like, if you watch every post-game interview, I guarantee you, okay, it starts like something like this. Well, the first period, I thought we were this. Second period, I thought we were this. And the third period, I thought we were this.
That's what I'm saying.
It's every
Robot.
But it's like, I kind of appreciated, like, it's weird. Like, when you go, like, next time you see a post-game interview from Huska, like, go watch it for just, like, 30 seconds. And it's just very, like, monotone, but it's just like, but he just breaks it down from start to finish. Mm-hmm. And that's something I can, like, kind of appreciate a little bit. And especially for a game like this, it's like, okay, maybe I do want to break down, like, what did you see from why they weren't able to start fresh or start off hot here? Klapka scoring early, it's great, but it's like, it took them a while to get into it, making silly turnovers, and then boom, third period, different story.
Sure. And I think that we're starting to see a different type of coaching when it comes to the media for a lot of these coaches, because I think that they feel like they don't want to just give the typical answers that we've all grown accustomed to seeing.
Right.
I think we're seeing a lot of guys kind of break things down. That's one thing that, since covering the Devils, I've learned to really appreciate about Sheldon Keefe, is that he really breaks down his reasoning behind things. He doesn't give like very, basic answers. He kind of gives you a breakdown of like what he's seeing and why he's making that change, whether it's a system change or putting in a player in one position or another. I feel like I learned something new every day when he's speaking. And I think you could say the same thing with Huska, that he's, instead of being like a huge personality that gets viral for clips, he's really just giving the reporters a lot more to digest and also put into articles, which I think is great, because then a lot of us get more of a detailed reading. And then also it allows the fan or whomever that's reading to kind of maybe take a step back and reevaluate what they're seeing and compare it to what Huska's putting out there. So I think it's good. I had a laugh a couple, like yesterday. I don't know how this came up on my Instagram feed. It was the Flames locker room reaction after they beat the Devils. They came back and everybody's smiling, laughing, like high-fiving. Was great. Huska comes in and just like looks at the team, and he just smiles. He goes, "You guys."
He's like,
something like that.
You bastards.
You bastards, right? He was like, "You bastards," and then everyone got into it, but like it's like two words, and everybody just like. Everybody reacts in the way that you want them to react.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think is so interesting about personalities. And I think it's appropriate, considering that we have to talk about another coach or former coach who has a bigger personality.
Yeah. One quick story, though. I don't know if you saw it, and you can watch it on YouTube. It's the Chase, right? They do the documentary with Flames and they follow them, right? There was one point, it was they were in Washington to start that road trip, right? And Huska, okay, boys, we got to do this, and this. Who wants it? Who wants to start, right? That's a lot of the games this year. That's how he goes. He goes, who wants the starting lineup tonight, right?
Right.
Rooney pipes up and goes, us, coach, like the Lombo, like that line, the fourth line, like, let's go. And like Huska, like, it was weird, like, kind of like not cut him off, but like they both started talking at the same time, where Huska was like, hey, I want Backlund's line, or whoever it was. Right. And Rooney was like, well, shit, right? And so the next time, it was literally the next game in Tampa, right? Huska, same thing. Who wants it, right? Goes quiet, and he's like, Roon dog, let's go. And then Lombard gets up, and he's like, fuck yeah, let's go.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah, and they were talking, like, before they jumped on, he's like, I thought he was going to do that again to us. So there's such, like, a comfortable, like, it's a fun vibe going on, and that's the big thing that you
agree.
kind of want to take away from this. It's getting so dark outside right now. I think something's coming down. I don't know what it is, but like
it's literally the exact opposite. Like as you can see, my screen gets
it was
right now.
sunshine like an hour ago, and now all of a sudden it just went.
Jeez.
Anyway, yeah, so great game on Tuesday, great win, great way to stay in it a little bit. Interesting conversation coming up though when we talk about the standings. But very quickly, let's get into tonight. We got a big one tonight, obviously. Dallas coming into town. They're on a back-to-back, being in Edmonton last night, taking down a depleted Oilers team 4-3, up 4-0 though after two periods. So I don't know how you want to look at that, but interesting stuff going into tonight from the Flames' perspective. Igor Sharangovich is a healthy scratch going into tonight's game. Backlund back in the lineup after missing 6 games. And then you don't see Anderson's name on here, but it was reported by Derek Willis that he is going to be in the lineup tonight. He just wasn't at morning skate this morning. So there is no word.
It was optional, was it not?
I believe it was optional this morning, yes. So
I always find it interesting how, like, even when teams are like, oh, it's an optional skate, I feel like always it's like 3/4 of the team goes on anyway.
Yes, yeah.
So thing. It's like for a lot of these guys.
He was dealing with something, but he is available tonight, and it sounds like Anderson's good to go. So I imagine what'll happen here, for those of you who can't see, it's the same forward lineup, basically, just that Backlund switching out with Igor Sharangovich. So he's going to be on that line with Coleman and Farabee, Klapka, Rooney, Lomberg. Everything else stays the same. But what I imagine the lineup tonight will be defensively will be Hanley and Weegar, Ball with Anderson, Bean and Pahal, Miramanoff will be the odd man out, and then obviously Sharangovich getting scratched. What do you make of Sharangovich getting healthy scratched again for the second time this month?
I don't have an issue with it because we talked about it in the last episode on Monday about, Sharangovich just really, really hasn't been a factor of late. And, it's much easier to see that when your team's not winning because then you can start pointing fingers. I think people's reaction, including the person right below this tweet from Pat Steinberg, who definitely is not happy with Rooney over Sharangovich. It's more, it's ball in the second pair.
Yeah,
you got to stop. This is too funny. Lakers in 5, by the way, according to Lil Willie. Whatever that. But I think it's necessary because Sharangovich is not producing, and Huska I think is not afraid to make a statement by saying, "Look, I don't care if the guy's getting paid, $5-ish million. Like
it's coming. It's coming into next season, but yes,
eventually. But you got to, you're not scoring, and your main objective on this team is to score, and you're not doing it.
Despite being on the third line, he's still getting minutes, and it's not even maybe scoring; it's just lack of offense.
He's also like not in position. There's times where, like, even when they're in the offensive zone or they're putting on good forecheck, he's not really in a position where he can do much of anything. Like he's not. It doesn't seem like he's active, looking around, being like, where can I, where can I fit in to kind of like make a play?
Yeah.
And I think that it's nice to have a change. It's good to get Backlund back in the lineup. No pun intended.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't have an issue with it at all.
I actually like this third line.
The third line I think feels better.
It does. I don't know why, but it does.
But I think a lot of us do it. You have Backlund, who's a pass first type of guy. We talked about it. You have Farabee and Coleman, who are a little bit more on the side of shooting. Maybe, Farabee in particular. So what you have is you have a distributor with 2 guys that are more focused on shooting, and I think that's always important.
Right.
And also, maybe this is somewhat of a hot take, but there are times where I think that Backlund can be somewhat of a play driver, a guy who can kind of who can kind of make a play to set up other people. And I think that that's kind of what Huska wants to go with that line. And I think the same could be said for at least the top 9, in terms of what he wants to see when he's rolling out those lines on a consistent basis. But, defensive pairings, again,
stay the same.
Anderson didn't practice, but that shouldn't be a worry to anybody. And then again, you have Wolf.
He is playing tonight, just FYI.
He is playing. He just didn't practice.
Yeah, just didn't practice. So, I mean, I agree. I just think with Sharangovich, it's like, if you're not again, like I go back to, it's not the the fact that he's not scoring. It's just the lack of offense just isn't there, right? Like
Yeah.
on a line where, you do have Farabee, right? And you do
Right.
have Coleman, right? And,
Yes.
it's going to, whatever, like it's going to take some time, but it's like, it might turn into a point where, I wouldn't be surprised. Like it might just be a bad year for him, but, at some point it's like, he is this kind of third line guy.
Yeah. And I don't think there's like, I don't want to call it a sophomore slump for Sharangovich. I mean, you could call it that in regards to this is his second year in Calgary.
Yeah. It's not even that there's that much pressure on him.
No, especially when you have guys like Kadri and Huberdeau and Coronado and even Zari who are stepping up.
Yeah.
And we talked about how like, the offense has to get going. It has gotten going the last couple of games. And the guy that stands out, who is supposed to be an offensive guy, is Sharangovich. He's not really getting in on the action at all. And like you said, it's not even just the scoring. It's the fact that like the offense is just not there. I don't know. For all we know, and I don't like to speculate things, but for all we know, he's dealing with an injury that we know nothing about.
Or
you know how it is, Kyle. It's like at the end of the year, clean up, and everybody's like, "Oh, I ruptured my Achilles," and you're like, "What?"
He is a healthy scratch, though.
But he's a healthy scratch tonight, and that's different.
Yeah, that's
healthy
totally
scratch
different.
is more like, okay, like you're getting healthy scratch because you're not contributing right now.
Right.
And maybe him getting scratched and then eventually being put back in line, maybe that'll get him going.
I'd be curious to see if it goes well tonight, right? And there's a big celebration afterwards, right? I don't know if I'd want Sharangovich involved in the celebration afterwards. I want him to kind of feel like this is what it's like if you're not here.
Right.
That's got to be motivation for you, dude.
It would definitely be a message center for sure.
It should be, and mind you, he has every right to obviously be in the locker room, so he's obviously going to be there. But it should kind of feel like that's got to be a message center, right? But the other thing too is that Huberdeau, Frost, and Coronado, that line, I love.
It's been great. It's been
really, really good, and that's what we were kind of clamoring, where it's like somebody who's finally kind of finding their scoring touch a little bit, even if it's from Coronado. And I like it with Frost a little bit too, because it might get them going here a little bit with the playmaker and Huberdeau.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and that's what you want. You want to start getting, and you want guys to start having chemistry, and I feel like they are.
Yeah. Who, by the way, has more goals than McDavid? That's crazy. That's crazy.
that is crazy, and I think you'll definitely. I think it's also going to be fun to know that probably the Flames are going to have 2 30-goal scorers at the end of the year. Yes. In a year where the offense has been suspect at times. And the good news is that again, Kyle, it goes back to what we're talking about, like off-season outlook. You end up with 2 30-goal scores despite the offense being an issue. I think that motivates you even more if you're Craig Conroy to be like, what if I add even more offense?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like...
And then it changes things.
It does change a lot.
Yeah. The Smith starting in net tonight for the Stars. We have Dustin Wolf obviously in net. Any sort of predictions you have for tonight?
I think it'll be interesting to see how the Stars come out. Second game of a back-to-back for them. They played last night, and like you had mentioned, they were up 4-0 going into the third against Edmonton, and then nearly
almost blew it
the whole damn thing. I wonder if that is a factor that maybe the Flames can exploit something and maybe jump on them. And again, you have to find ways to get points. And so this is going to be tough. But I'm going to say, I think the Flames will win tonight. I'm going to say in overtime. I'm going to go 3-2 in overtime. That's my guess.
They pushed Dallas in Dallas last time, and I think that they can hang with them.
I think they can too. If it's a low scoring game, Kyle, I think that the Flames can sneak a win.
That's gonna be the biggest thing tonight. Is if Dallas gets off to a quick start tonight, that's concerning, right? Like if they get off to a quick start, I'm more concerned. But yeah, I agree. I think if they hang with them all the way till the end, I'll give them a chance. Absolutely.
Yeah. And again, Dustin Wolf is probably going to have to be active right away in net because I'm sure the Stars are going to want to like put pressure on him right away. But if Wolf and that defense can hang on, and get through that, then I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I think so too.
Get through that barrage.
Still leaning a little bit towards the Dallas side of it. But again, I'm not going to bring out a full prediction. I like it the fact that if they start off quick, I don't like the Flames' chances. But if it's close by third period time, I'll give Calgary a chance because they have been the better third period team for the last couple weeks, give or take.
They have.
All right, quick break. We'll come back. We'll take a look at the standings, and then we'll get into fun news that we saw this morning. Not Flames related, and obviously totally not coaching related either whatsoever.
No, what?
All right, we'll be back. The NHL season has been as predictable as a puck rolling on its edge, and no one knows where it's going. But that just means there's time for your favorite team to figure things out, and games left for you to get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. You can try betting on something simple like picking a team to win, and you can go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and select your team and place your first bet. And if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet with $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. It's only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
Alrighty, let's keep it rolling here. We're doing this every show, it feels like now, where we're just looking at the standings again.
Well, it's that time of the year, right? We have to.
I know it's that time of the year.
I know it sucks, Kyle. I know it's stressful. Believe me, I know.
It is. Here's what's interesting. Let's take a look at it real quick here.
Are we looking at both or just the West today? What are we doing?
Well, we'll look at both for sure. Okay. Looking at the West here again, though, Canucks obviously they've won 2 in a row, Calgary 4 in a row, Blues 7 in a row, like ridiculous stuff, right?
It's so unfair.
It's unfair. Flames still have 2 games in hand on Vancouver. They can easily jump them with 1 win. That's all it's going to take.
The Canucks should have been 0-3 on their New York road trip. By the way, they should not have lost to the Rangers, especially only giving up 12 shots. They shouldn't have beaten the Devils. They should
have lost to the Devils.
They should have lost to the Devils after, despite them scoring with 30 seconds left. And the Islander won. They were down 1-0, but then dominated. So I guess I'll give them that one. So
you can give them 1, right?
But I give them 1, and they should still be a point behind the Flames.
Absolutely. Flames still have games in hand. Thankfully, if you look at all 3 teams above them, Vancouver, St. Louis, and Minnesota, they have games in hand, which is important. And all 3 teams are in action. Vancouver's in action tomorrow night. Both Minnesota and St. Louis are in action tonight. And obviously Calgary as well. Every game's important still coming up.
Yep.
So here's what's interesting. And hear me out on this, and I want your thoughts. The Flames still have to play Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's reachable to get them. Because look at their last 10 games.
Reachable in terms of points? Like where they're at?
I think they can get them.
Okay.
I think it's possible because Minnesota gets Washington tonight, right? They got a back-to-back with New Jersey coming up, right? Rangers, all that fun stuff, and then they get Calgary, right?
Yeah.
So it's possible because they've been slumping really badly, right? And they're in this position, right? So it all of a sudden makes that Calgary-Minnesota game coming up very interesting, right?
Yes.
And this is also the stretch that we talked about too beforehand, where these are, hey, look what I said last week. I said it while we were on the stream last Thursday, where I was like, this team has to win 3 in a row to still be considered in it. And I was kind of right. They did win 3 in a row there. 4 in a row, obviously.
4 in a row now.
4 in a row now. But you got Dallas tonight, and I look at these. This is a 4-game window I'm looking at, where you've got tonight, you got Saturday in Edmonton. You got to go to Colorado Monday on Prime, and then it's a back-to-back. So the next night you have to go to Utah, right? And that's when the schedule gets easier because you get the Ducks, you get the Sharks, and the Ducks and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I think just looking at these 4 games, they have to win 2.
Yes.
I think they have to win at
least 2 of them.
Anything lower than that, I think they're in trouble.
I agree.
Right?
I agree.
What do you think the number is points-wise to say that, and this is talking in general for a team to clinch. What's the number you think of and go, yeah, that's a safe number. That's a playoff spot? Because I have one in mind.
Yeah, I mean it's tough, especially this year with how close everything's been. I mean, I'm gonna go off of like where Minnesota is right now,
Sure.
at 85. I'm gonna say somewhere between 92 and 93 points is where I think you would feel safe. Because even if you get 90, especially this year, it's not a guarantee that you feel good. But if you're in the 92, 93 point range, I think you give yourself a really good shot of getting in.
I was thinking 95. Like
95,
for me, that's
okay.
like the safest. Like.
Well, that's definitely safe. If you miss out of the playoffs with 95 points, what that tells me is that the teams that made it above you also went crazy at the same time.
Exactly.
Which could happen, unfortunately, especially with St. Louis.
But also it can turn, right?
It can
For
turn.
St. Louis, that's the thing. Like, yeah, it's been great. You still have 9 games left to play, right? You got to go to Nashville tonight, which helps. You got Colorado on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, all right, like we'll see what happens, right? They've obviously been the hottest team in the NHL, though, since the trade deadline.
Right.
That's the issue. But I look at Minnesota and I go, if they go 500, if they go 5 for 5 or 5 and 5, excuse me, in their last 10 games, I think that's enough for them to get in, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's possible though, because I look at their schedule and I go, man, they could still falter a little bit here, right? And this is me. I'm not even looking at Vancouver when I'm looking at these standings here, because if we can't get past Vancouver, we're not getting in, right? And I think it's irrelevant at that point. So it's still doable. And I still think with St. Louis, like you just need to stay within reach, right? You can't take yourself out of it, right? So it's going to be interesting to see what happens tonight, because all 3 of those teams playing, minus Vancouver, playing tomorrow night in Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with McDavid, Draisaitl, and possibly Stuart Skinner not playing on Saturday when the Flames go to Edmonton, you have to win that game, and you more than likely have to beat Utah on Tuesday. I don't see them being Colorado. They've just had their number all year. I don't like their chances tonight, but they've been on a heater, and maybe they're taking that confidence going in. What do you think?
I think that they definitely have to win. You know, you're looking at it, we have 12 games, including tonight, you have 12 games left to go.
Correct.
I would say you got to win 8 of them down the stretch.
I think you got to go. I think you got to go. If you're the Flames, you got to go 8 and 4.
Right. I think that, and I mean, in a perfect world, if you got points in the 4 games you don't win, I mean that you're in the driver's. I think you're in the driver. If they could get points, right? They can win some games, but also like if they lose, get some points.
Sure.
The rest of the way, I think that gives them a really good shot of getting in, because is it unrealistic? I mean, sure, because that's a 12 game point streak you would be getting at, and that's pretty crazy.
It would say a lot. Sorry, it would say a lot tonight if St. Louis stumbles and the Flames pull off a crazy win. I think confidence goes back up, because now you're 2 points within,
and the pressure,
still 3 points behind, or 3 games behind.
And the pressure falls back on St. Louis, because, again, in the back of their mind, well, yes, it's great where they are right now at 83 points. They have a little bit of a cushion over Vancouver. The Flames still have 3 games in hand. So there's going to be times where the Blues are not playing and the Flames still have to catch up. And those are going to be the games where if the Blues are faltering and stumbling down the stretch here, and the Flames are continuing to play hot, the Flames could easily jump them and into a spot in the playoffs for sure.
It could, and this is the thing, like the last game of the year is a makeup game, and there's still going to be a game behind Vancouver, St. Louis, and all these other teams going into the final day.
Sure.
So again, they need to stay within 2 points of these teams, and
you're right,
have the tiebreaker, and it may or may not come down to the last 2-3 games of the year. And I think that the way we've seen it, it probably will. So every game's important. And I mean, I like them playing up against their opponent tonight, even though they played down to Seattle tonight. I like them playing up tonight against Dallas.
I do too.
All right, so that's the West. Let's take a look at the East while we're at it. Neil and his Devils got a nice little win last night, so that's good.
I don't know if nice is the I don't know if nice is the word you want to use for that. If anybody had watched that game, it was more stressful than it needed to be, but it was a win. As I kept saying last night, a win is a win. I don't care who we're playing. I don't care the circumstances. You need points, as we keep talking about. And they got huge points. And the Islanders lost, which made it that much better for them.
9 points clear now of the Rangers. And the Islanders, who have 2 games in hand, they also did lose the other night to Vancouver. I think they picked up a point, though, if I'm not mistaken.
They did not.
Did not. Okay, so regulation loss.
Picked up a point. They picked up a point on Monday against, I forgot who they played, but they went to overtime.
Yeah.
Oh, it was Columbus. Yeah, they picked up a point against Columbus. And Columbus is still there. Despite everything, they are still right there. And Detroit, too. I'm going to give them credit. I want to give them a fair.
So is Montreal, too. They're still hanging around. Looking at the Atlantic, the Leafs have jumped Florida now for first in the Atlantic. That holds on. They would take on Ottawa in the first round. Washington obviously clinched. Looking at Carolina here, it feels like whenever they clinch, they probably lock themselves into number 2. That feels pretty obvious. And New Jersey, whenever they clinch, I imagine that whenever they clinch, they'll probably be locked in at number 3.
Yeah, I think at this point in the year, especially because Carolina has 2 games in hand on the Devils at this point. So I think it's very first of all, it's been likely for the past 3.5 months that Carolina and New Jersey are destined to play each other in the first round.
Yeah.
I think it was always a matter of who would get home ice advantage, and it looks like it's going to end up being Carolina, which is doesn't surprise me. But what I found interesting, Kyle, is that a lot of these teams, none of them are on a losing or winning streak in any way, shape, or form.
It's true.
It's like Washington, overtime loss, just one overtime loss.
To the Jets. Yeah.
Got a loss. Yeah, to the Jets. It was a great game, by the way. It was a great game to watch.
Great game.
And Ovechkin scored, so he's getting that much closer.
Yep.
That April 6th date, by the way, is looking more and more like it could be the thing. So we'll see.
Yeah.
But then you got obviously New Jersey got a win. Then you have Ottawa, Montreal, both lost. Islanders lost. Rangers lost. The East right now is getting dominated by the Western Conference. There's a lot of East versus West right now in terms of games, and that's been kind of obvious, especially when you look at the winning streaks out in the West, and then you look at the you just look at the last, you want to even call it streak for any of these teams. But nonetheless, everything is pretty much still the same as it was on Monday. Not much has really changed.
Not really. Yeah, and I know it probably will once we come back around to Monday. You got Thursday night games, and we still have 4 more days ahead.
We have today, we have tomorrow, we have. By the time Monday comes around, I think things will look different. I think
for sure. Ottawa, I think, is still looking pretty to kind of get in as well. I'm fairly confident that they're going to find a way in. And good for them. Love to see it.
Who would they play now?
So now, because Toronto's jumped Florida, it would be the Battle of Ontario.
Is that more exciting than Ottawa, Florida with the Tkachuk brothers? Do you think that's more? Maybe would it be fair to say from a Canadian perspective, would that be more entertaining?
So 2 things. Yes, it would be more entertaining, but I'm pretty sure Ottawa fans do not want that. Why? It's because the Leaf fans flood the Sens Arena every single time they show up.
I have seen that. Yeah, that would be tough.
It's all Leaf fans. So I think for Sens fans, they want to avoid that, and they want Florida. Or, hey, Tampa's still kicking around too.
I never want to play Tampa. I don't care where they are.
This is a plus 59 goal differential. That's crazy. That's crazy.
And they're not even in first place in their own division.
That's wild. That's nuts.
Which tells me that they have definitely lost some close games at some point this year.
Scoring close games.
I couldn't tell you when that happened because I can't remember. And you know what? I think also it plays a factor that they've only played in 5 overtime games this year at this point. Now, again, Florida, same thing. Florida, Toronto, only 3. So like that, that's not many.
No,
so it's
no,
like
it's going to be fascinating.
For them. Yeah,
it's going to be fascinating down the stretch to see how
a
that.
lot of interesting playoff matchups. I think that we could be getting. I think it's less. I think it's less of a concrete answer in terms of what we're going to see out of the East, whereas I think in the West we're starting to get more of a picture.
It's almost a foregone conclusion that we're getting Dallas and Colorado.
Yeah, and I think the only foregone conclusion at this point in the East is probably New Jersey playing Carolina in the first round, which again has been talked about and is expected for the better part of the last several months. They haven't really, the standings have just not moved in terms of the top 3.
And I mean, just again, just in terms of stuff that's kind of stayed relevant, it seems like the Kings are going to end up playing the Oilers. I don't see Vegas moving out of that one spot.
Kings, by the way, on what at this point, like a 14, 15 game home point streak. I mean, they're the best
9-1 right now in their last 10 games.
If you're Edmonton, as weird as this might sound, because you've obviously gotten away with beating them twice, I don't think you'd want to play them a third time with how good they've been this year.
Without home ice advantage. Yeah. So it seems like the only one we really know right now is probably Dallas and Colorado. Yeah. I know it's not official, but that's probably the one
it's feeling more and more as the days go on.
And I think the other one I think we have to say is Devils and Hurricanes. It feels like
right. I'm mentally preparing for that as we get closer to the
I think we all are. Last piece of news really for today is just Mr. John Tortorella, who made some interesting comments last night that ultimately
I actually didn't see the comments. Can you keep me up? Can you update me with that?
Let me see if I can find it. Yeah.
I could also, I was gonna say I could also bring it up if that makes it easier.
Yeah, so obviously it's been trending. Last night, Philadelphia got shellacked last night. I think they were playing were they playing the Leafs last night?
Yeah, and they lost 7-2.
Yeah, I believe so. Or was
really bad.
But anyway, so Tortorella unfortunately has been fired this morning from the Philadelphia Flyers. Made some post-game comments last night that were interesting, that kind of threw himself under the bus. And
I'm gonna find this.
If you can find the quote, that would be kind of great. Here, I got the quote actually. So he goes, "This falls on me. I'm not really interested in learning how to coach in this type of season where we're at right now, but I have to do a better job."
Wow.
Like that right there, Briere, that's all he needed, right? He goes, "Okay, if you're not interested in this anymore, go home."
Yeah.
And I'm kind of glad that he did it, right? Tortorella needs to go home, and I think his coaching career is over. I think he's done.
Yeah, I don't think that his personality just like eventually it rubs people the wrong way. If you look at every stop of his career, at first, the team kind of buys in. Like, look at even like Columbus, right? He's probably the most successful coach in Blue Jackets history. At
Tampa too, with the cup, right?
Right. And Tampa as well. And, Philadelphia and even the Rangers, in the early 2010s, that was, but eventually I think that his personality, his demeanor, the way he coaches, I think just pisses off players and really makes them feel like they're not human anymore. Because I can't begin to tell you my feelings about when last year he benched Sean Couturier, for a game, or I think it was earlier this year, might have been. There's their captain, mind you. And Couturier said something along the lines of like, it sucks when you feel like you're not being treated like a human being.
Yeah.
And you kind of like hear that and you go, that's not the type of thing you want to hear from any player talking about their coach, especially at the NHL level. And we obviously saw the back and forth between Torts and Matvei Michkov.
Saw that all year. And I'm sure Michkov's happy about this.
I think Daniel Briere was looking for a reason to fire him because I don't think that the Flyers were going to go any further positively with Tortorella as their coach. I think they need a different voice. I don't think that they'll make a hire very quickly. I think they're going to see how the playoffs shape out, who stays, who goes. I think again the name that comes up is Carl from University of Denver.
Also, apparently Rick Tockett's been in connections too with Flyers.
Rick Tocchet, former Flyer, and we'll see if Vancouver. I think if Vancouver does that, Kyle, maybe this sounds a bit crazy. I think that might be the sign for a rebuild in Vancouver if they do that.
It might be if Tocchet goes,
if they're
man.
Firing Tocchet, it's like, what's next?
Whenever they hired him, that's when the Canucks really started rolling.
Right, and I don't think it's fair. I think if they make the playoffs, I think his job is safe. Maybe. But also he could leave. I've seen that before.
If Tocchet gets fired, it might it's one of those that probably wouldn't feel like a firing, you know?
No, it would feel like Tocchet is basically being like, I have more interest in another job, so let's call it a mutual agreement.
That's what I'm assuming is what it is.
And that was kind of
usually part ways. That's what it
might
be.
And I think that, if I'm not mistaken, that's how Brad Treliving described it when he relieved Sheldon Keefe, is that he didn't really get fired. It was more that Treliving just wanted to put a new voice in there. And that, and you could understand it because, again, Keefe, great success in terms of getting his team to the playoffs. Even this year, with the way the Devils season has gone, for whatever reason, some of it is not even, I would say, Sheldon Keefe's fault, just unfortunate circumstance. They're can't get it done. And I think you just need a new voice. And I remember that's how Steve Dangle described it, that he was like, I'm not terribly upset that they fired Keefe, because at the end of the day, they needed something new.
Yes.
And that's how I think, I definitely think that the Flyers players probably feel a sense of relief that you're just getting somebody else. Even if it's for these last 8-9 games of the year, you're doing that. So
yes. Yeah. And it was funny, the first comment that I saw, that got all the reaction just from, it was on Flyers Nation. I saw it on Twitter. And again, from the quote, reading the quote again, this falls on me. I'm not really interested in learning how to coach in this type of season where we're at right now, but I have to do a better job. First comment I read is, Torts is coaching the Phantoms against NHL teams and has the worst goaltending in the league. What's he supposed to do? It's not even that. It's the fact that he's given up.
It's a fact that he basically is saying, I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. That's essentially what he said. And just like what you said, that was Briere's green light to say, there's your bags.
It's easier. It's easier because then people can go, oh, well, look at the comments he made yesterday. Of course he got fired. And I think it's interesting. And maybe it's interesting that they did it right away. Maybe maybe the comments really pissed off Briere, really emotionally pissed him off.
Let this quote sink in again, though. Just this one sentence. I'm not really interested in learning how to coach in this type of season where we're at. That is I hate to say it, but it's it was a mistake from day one letting him in, because we are in a new age. It was a mistake for the Buffalo Sabres to hire Lindy Ruff. It was a mistake for the Flyers to hire John Tortorella, because they're the same guys in the sense that they're trying to teach this old school type hockey and develop that within their system, and it's not working out. And you can see it in Buffalo, maybe for other reasons, but it plays a big part of it, right? And it's also, and as you're seeing it, never worked out in Philadelphia. And now for Flyers players, for guys like Michkov, for guys like young guys, especially Jake Peltier, the former Flame, maybe that gives them a bit of hope going forward.
Do you remember what Morgan Frost said in his first media availability with Calgary, with the Calgary people?
I forgot.
He said that he is coming to a team that actually will let him play and not get benched.
That's just it.
And that right there, I think, is a statement in itself. I'd be curious to know how Farabee and Frost feel about it. They probably care because of the friends that they have on the team in Philadelphia, but I think they're probably thinking I mean, I'm on a new team now. What does it matter? I don't.
And there's one last thing I want to point out, and I want to
Mhm.
relate it here with Calgary a little bit, right?
Mhm.
There's Torts' way of, and you said it, like benching a guy. There's Torts' way of benching a guy, punishing him, benching Michkov,
Punishing is the word.
benching Morgan Frost. There's Ryan Huska, who we've seen times this year where they let guys sit, but not for that reason. The reason is there's just other lines who were getting going.
Right.
Right? Like that's the difference here. There's punishing guys, and then there's, you know what, you're just slow tonight. You're just not getting off the hop. I need to roll with the line that's going.
And look at the way that, and here's a good example. Sharon Govich is a healthy scratch.
Yes.
We know why. It's
We know
not
why.
we know why. And Huska, I'm sure, had a conversation with Sharon Govich about it. And I'm sure it was fine. I'm sure it wasn't anything like
It's fine, but I'm sure Sharon Govich isn't happy about it.
Oh, of course. But then again, he has to look himself in the mirror and say, well, I'm not producing. I need to produce.
That's when you know, like, that's when you know, like, that's on you, right?
Correct.
And sometimes when Tortorella did it, when he benched guys,
Mhm.
like, especially Michkov, it's like, was it really on him? Or is it the fact that you're not putting him in the best position possible, even though you're on a poor team? It's like, you have to do what's best, and you have to give these guys minutes, and you have to stop, like, diminishing these guys. And I am sure as shit, years down the line, if Michkov becomes this superstar, we're going to hear about it.
And that's what I was going to say. It's that, well, we won't know until, we go into next year and the year after that when he has a different guy behind the bench. I think it's, you brought up before about, this is a new age of hockey. I want to be very careful with what I'm about to say because I know that some people might take this as a personal offense, but I feel like it needs to be said. I think that there are players in the league, the younger guys, the new generation. I think that some of them have been pampered way too much up until this point. Some of them. I say some, and I'm going to give you an example in a moment, just so that you have a better understanding of what I'm talking about. And I think that there are times where these coaches are struggling with the battle of, like you said, the old school approach and like, how do I not make it work, but like, where is that balance? Where it works out for the player and it works out for the coach as a whole. And I think that that's where we're at. I don't want to say that like, we have like a hockey players are soft type of mentality. I'm not really looking at it that way. I think it all depends on the personalities you have in the locker room, and you have to have the right coach that meshes that well. Tortorella was never going to mesh with what the Flyers wanted to do. I never saw it that way.
Right.
I didn't see it all. And you saw it even at the end in Columbus, it was falling apart because the yelling and the benchings and all that. You can deal with that, Kyle, when you're winning and you're successful. You can deal with it. But when you're not getting any better and you're getting punished like ruthlessly for any little mistake, you know what you end up doing mentally? You start playing scared because you're worried in the back of your mind all the time. If I make one mistake, I'm getting my ass benched.
I'm
That
done.
was the thing. Lindy Ruff was very big on this too. If you made one little mistake, you get benched for a whole period if you're not careful. So the example that I wanted to bring up was, I find it so interesting what Elliot Friedman said on his latest 32 Thoughts. And I don't know if you had a chance to listen to it. Do we have something?
No. Sorry, I was just looking up. I was oohing the Elliot Friedman thing. Sorry.
Yeah,
but also too, like real quick, like Ryan Huska's 49 years old. John Tortorella's how old?
I don't know, 60 something.
Exactly. 60, right.
Yeah. I thought Huska was older than that. That's really shocking to me that he's only.
Yeah, he's 49. Anyway, sorry, Elliot Friedman. Yes.
So yeah, Friedman was talking just literally this past week. He was reacting to the viral clip of obviously Sheldon Keefe throwing Jonathan Kovacevic under the bus. And Friedman said, I don't think that Sheldon Keefe ever got enough credit for really, really demanding more from the top guys and the players in general in Toronto. Because as we talked about, Kyle, if that went public, he would have been out a lot sooner than he did. Maybe, who knows? I think the public backlash in Toronto would have really been overwhelming. But
it shouldn't. That's the
but
thing.
it shouldn't. But it is, because I believe that there is a different mentality for some people in the hockey world, that there's a new approach that you have to go by. You have to be, I guess you want to say, nicer. I don't know. I don't know what the right word is. But going back to what Friedman said, he said, and I quote, that he's been told that a bunch of players in New Jersey are still adjusting to Sheldon Keefe's style of coaching, which
Sure.
is he a yeller? Sure, but I don't think he's a yeller at his players. It doesn't seem that way. It seems like he's more, the reactions you get are when he's yelling at the ref or complaining. I've seen it numerous times in Toronto. I've seen it this year in New Jersey. But I think it's the holding players accountable thing that I think is the more interesting part, that I don't believe the Devils have had a coach until now that really is holding guys accountable, even when they're dealing with this adversity, because I think that there is an area where you could argue that maybe they've been pampered a little bit and more of a country club atmosphere than we need to be more firm. We need to take this more seriously. We need to expect to be way better than where we're at, even when we're not in the situation that we're in. Now, what does this have to do with John Tortorella? John Tortorella straight up does not care about any single player, their personality, or what they are about. He cares about the old school. If they are not going to listen to me, I am going to punish them. I am going to embarrass them. I'm going to do this, because in his mind, he feels that they need a quote unquote kick in the rear end. And remember when ESPN first came back to covering hockey and they had that show where Tortorella was on it? This was before he took the Flyers job, and he would react to certain things like highlights and stuff. And he would just be this grumpy old man that would complain about any sort of emotion, or like, the young players, reacting to scoring and things like that. He is just so old school that I just knew that he was never going to change his ways.
Yes.
So that's the way I look at it.
I agree. And that's why we all say, like, it's time for you to go, man. You should know when it's time, right? Yeah. And it's like, go retire. You've whatever. You've had a successful coaching career now. It's like, go sit on a beach, right? Yeah. And that can be said for guys like Lindy Ruff, and eventually when other guys get up there in age, it's like, when it's
Peter
time,
Laviolette.
Right?
You could make an argument for that.
But it's like, for Tortorella, it's like, if you want to go coach, like, go do it at a different level. You can't do it at this level, man.
College.
You can't do that stuff at.
Well, actually, you're pushing it. Now you're pushing it. You're pushing.
But I also but sure, I say that, and I know that he probably would get a job in college if he wants. But I think what's not sinking in, and I think what a lot of other teams, whether it's at the NHL, the AHL, whatever level, they need to look at him and go, "You aren't right for this generation anymore." Right?
Exactly.
And we've seen it. So it just doesn't work, right? Your style, your personality used to work back in the 90s, the early 2000s, and the early 2010s.
Yeah.
It doesn't work 15 years later anymore.
And think about the coaches who are no longer coaching, who are a part of that same era that Tortorella's coming from.
Look at Mike Babcock.
Mike Babcock. I don't want to, maybe this is a stretch, but like Bruce Boudreau, who's obviously not coaching anymore. You have Suter.
The fact that Dan Bilesman is still a head coach is crazy.
Don't get me started with that.
But even look at that though, right? Like, look what Seattle was trying to do after they made the playoffs, going to Game 7 in the second round. They hired Dan Bilesman, right? Those Sabres trying to get back after, just like.
I wasn't a fan. I was not a fan of them firing.
I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
I know we know who we're talking about, but I forgot. Wasn't a fan of that firing and the hiring. I know that he had done well down in Coachella Valley and he had been great, but I thought that there were other options that could have been better.
And for Tortorella, it's like, maybe you're good for that. Maybe you're good to get guys ready for the league.
I don't think that either.
I don't think he has a
think
place anywhere.
I think he's just done. I just don't think that there's a place for him at the professional level where it works. Like,
Right.
I don't see it that way.
What's he going to do? Go to another rebuilding team and then complain about it again?
He doesn't want it. Well, the shocking thing is that go back 2 years ago when he took the job, he said that he was excited to be a part of it. He knew what he was getting himself into when he took the job.
Yeah.
So for him 2 years later to say that, it's kind of like either it's a combination of he just can't do it. He can't relate to these players. He can't do this. And I think that they just need a different voice. What I think has been good also about Ryan Huska is that, you mentioned he's 49.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of doesn't come from the old school way of coaching. He kind of comes from, he's like an in-betweener where like he came in when that period was dying while also the new age is beginning. So for him, it's working. And I think that a really good example of a guy who has been able to adapt to just the NA to like how the game changes and everything is John Cooper.
Right.
John Cooper has seen a lot of different things over his time in Tampa Bay. I mean, and believe me, it's been a long period. Even before he was winning cups, it's been a long period. He is a screamer, yet also motivator. Yeah. I've seen those behind the scenes. You see those behind the scene clips when you coach Canada?
He's a Hall of Famer.
He's so good at it. Yeah. He's so good at it because he knows how to relate to the veteran players. He knows how to get the young guys motivated. He just knows what works. He just knows, and it works out so well.
He's a Hall of Famer.
I think when Pittsburgh fired Mike Johnson and replaced him with Coach Sullivan for that at least that 2-3 year period, it worked. Because Sullivan was a yeller, but you know what he was? He was an aggressive coach. He found, some gems there. He found that line of like Kessel and Nick and Bonino that were just like great.
Yeah.
Like there are coaches who get it and are able to adapt, and then there are guys who are not able to say, you know what, I need to change for the better.
You have to adapt because the game's always changing, right?
Right. You have to adapt, or you're gonna be left behind, and then you're gonna end up not having a job at some point.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's you have to adapt with the times, right? You compare it all the way back to the 70s and then the 80s, and you compare it to all these decades. Like every single decade, to be honest, is different than the last. Right? So there it is.
And it's not even also like personality wise of like how you coach the team. It's also the systems that you implement as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I can't say the amount of teams, Kyle, that I'm watching this year that have the same exact thing rolling out, dump and chase, or playing a defensive game, low scoring. It's like,
yep, you got it.
Can we get some creativity here? Can we get some aggression? Can we something? How about what makes a good? My dad gave me this quote. I'm giving a lot of credit for this. What makes a good coach at the end of the day from a system standpoint is knowing the team that you have, talent-wise, and putting them in a system that is strong for each player, puts them in the best possible position to succeed. That is how you become a good coach and a coach that sticks around for a long period of time.
Got it. And that's how we're going to wrap it up today, I think. That was a good combo.
I think that was a good conversation to have.
That was a good combo. Yeah, glad the timing of that all went down nicely for it. All right, so Flames in action tonight, obviously taking on Dallas. Make sure
you saw this, by the way, from our good buddy RJ. He says, I don't know if he's going to give us more, but he said new details are coming out regarding the Flyers' decision to fire Tortorella. I mean, again, I feel like
maybe there will be.
I feel like if it's new detail, it's going to be like, oh, the Flyers were already considering it before it happened.
Maybe.
And it just made it easier to do it. So.
All right. Well, again, Flames in action tonight against Dallas. Make sure to check that one out if you can. And
the even keel Ryan Huska behind the bench.
Even keel. And then Saturday, they're obviously in Edmonton. We will get you guys ready Monday because Monday night they will be in Colorado. And then Tuesday in Utah. So we'll get you ready for those two games. We'll see where we're at. And any sort of other craziness that happens between now and then, we'll never know, right? Maybe more firings to come, right? Because maybe that's the first domino. So there you go. Neil, good stuff this week.
Likewise.
Weekend. Yeah, have a great weekend coming up, and hopefully it gets all sunshine and rainbows for you, because that's not the case here. So,
well, maybe you'll get one this weekend. Maybe you'll get one.
If that was, I would be getting my golf clubs this weekend.
Fair enough.
All right, we'll catch y'all on Monday, and we'll have a great weekend. We'll chat later. Later, guys.